I no longer go by the name Astrid. I'm now known as Axel. He's a singer from a popular band I heard on Earth.
Gina!
Astrid, your father gave you a very tough Viking name, and I intend to honor his wishes.
Axel.
Astrid.
I said Axel.
Astrid.
Axel!
It's asshole, now listen to him!
Recently, we got this news that the IATSE put out a statement saying, I think it was upwards of 50 Marvel VFX artists are now basically coming together to unionize. And so these Marvel VFX artists who put in hours and hours of work, being underpaid, overworked, sleeping at their desks, really, putting together the VFX in some of the most highly anticipated, some of the most highest earning movies in Hollywood today. They have some terrible working conditions that they have to deal with. And now they are out there saying, hey man, this is it, that no longer are we going to do that. The IATSE is a union that's been around for years and years and years, and they represent a lot of other craftsmen within Hollywood. You've got, people from production coordinators to operators, sound, editors, hair, makeup, all of these people who are part of IATSE, they have protections because they have collective bargaining agreements in place, and that gives them the ability to be able to not only work a sane amount of hours, but also get paid fairly for them, and not have to worry about things like where VFX artists get these changes that come in last minute from the directors and producers of these big movies, and then they're asked to turn those around basically overnight and say, hey, well, you're not gonna get any more payment than what you already got. So you gotta do this, because if you don't do it, then you're not gonna get another project in the future. And that's just a terrible way to do any kind of job, no less visual effects job. I've done some rotoscoping work before for projects, and it is grueling. It is absolutely freaking grueling. Like, you sit there for 9 hours and you might have just gone through and rotoscoped what will on screen be like 3 seconds worth of footage. Like, it's insane how much hard work people put into it. Now, of course, there's a lot more than just things like rotoscoping. You're doing, other things like you're doing face replacements, you're doing wire removal, you're doing entire fully CGI, your particle systems, complete physics-based simulations. There's a lot that goes into VFX in movies today, especially Marvel movies, where there's entire studios dedicated to just the previs, that the stuff that you never get to see on screen, but the stuff that the directors and actors use as reference when they're filming the movie or before they go into production. And then later, all of that stuff, then other studios come in and turn that into actually usable content for the movie itself. But for all of those people, I think now, they're saying, look, no more, and then IATSE put out the statement, a super majority of Marvel's more than 50 worker crew had signed authorization cards indicating they wish to be represented by the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. And I could not be happier to hear this. For more than half a century, workers in the visual effects industry have been denied the same protections and benefits their co-workers and crew members have relied upon since the beginning of the Hollywood film industry, said Mark Patch, who's the VFX organizer for IATSE, in the statement announcing that filing. And he said that this is a historic first step for VFX workers coming together with a collective voice demanding respect for the work we do. And respect is ultimately a big part of this, but also just sane, normal, or as normal as you can imagine, working conditions for people in the VFX industry. That's not just a good thing for Marvel. The reason I'm talking about this on DCU Daily is because this is a good thing for the industry as a whole. I mean, sure, maybe there's, studio executives out there looking at this thing, oh my God, way more money, we're not going to do this. Like, we can go hire some other studio that's not part of this new union or this new filing. And sure, there's a lot of studios out there doing work, but look, ultimately, I think the reason why this is significant is because this could be the start of something much, much bigger. Because in light of the actor strike and the writer strike, and the fact that both of those are going on together for the first time simultaneously since the 60s, it speaks a lot to the fact that conditions in Hollywood in general, like whether you're an actor, whether you're a writer, whether you're a VFX artist, conditions have been deteriorating for years. And for VFX artists, I think, are in a worse position than the actors or writers. So I think they deserve this more than anybody else. And I sincerely hope that, other VFX houses and VFX artists who aren't just working on Marvel projects, people who are working on DC projects, people who are working on Star Wars, people who are working on all the other movies. Like every movie these days has some level of visual effects. Even a lot of the movies that you wouldn't think have visual effects have hidden visual effects, whether they're doing, cleanups in people's faces, de-aging or aging people up, or, removing things from a scene, whether it's, something on a piece of fabric or something in the background on a wall. There's a lot of small things that go into VFX today that people don't even notice. And, everybody in the VFX industry deserves the protections of a union, because clearly if there's no union in place, they will get exploited, because that's exactly what's been happening for decades now. And Marvel has been, probably the worst offender of this, because while they do build into their budgets, a whole plan and money for reshoots, they don't really build into their budgets the money needed for when the director asks for an entire sequence to be redone differently 2 weeks before the movie gets released in theaters. And all of a sudden, the VFX artists have to rush something together, and then people watch it and say, oh my God, the VFX are terrible. How is this movie $150 million of production and somehow we're getting terrible VFX? Well, it's because VFX artists, don't get enough time to finish their work. So not only at the end of the day, they did not get paid enough for the work, and they probably went through, bouts with depression, or they either decided to just leave the industry as a whole, or just have no hope for things getting better for them in the future. But also, when you look at their portfolio, they're like not able to show, oh yeah, that I did that scene in Marvel where that floating head thingy in Thor: Love and Thunder, that was my shot. Nobody wants to put that on their portfolio, nobody. But that's what happens when studios like Marvel, who have an outsized amount of power in the VFX industry and in Hollywood in general, they are able to basically exploit in part of the industry that is not unionized, where they don't have that protection. So I'm really glad that, these workers, these more than 50 workers, which is a small number, granted, but you have to start somewhere. And I really hope that a lot of these, people who work on Marvel movies, I'm sure they'll work on other projects too. And hopefully that, with them taking this first step, that's going to help us get to a point where other VFX artists from, other studios and other VFX houses who work on whether it's DC projects or, Star Wars projects or Jurassic World franchise or the Fast Furious franchise, any of the big movies or even the small ones, I hope they all can come on board and really make this take hold. And IATSE is one of the oldest unions in the game. So if IATSE is the one that's going to represent them, then they have the infrastructure in place to get things done. And that, I think, is going to be significant, because not only have we seen efforts like this take hold in the past, we've also seen them all pretty much fail miserably. And I think the reason why they all failed is because they never truly had that kind of backing. It was always some independent group kind of coming together. With IATSE, they're going to have a chance to really, make this stick and grow and be able to get a collective bargaining agreement with the studios. How long that takes to happen, I don't know, but you have to start somewhere, and I'm really glad that this is, finally a starting point. If it starts with the people who work at Marvel, great, but I think this could have a trickle-down effect to everybody across the VFX industry, and that could definitely affect DC movies as well. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Do you guys think this is a good thing for the industry as a whole? I certainly do think that it is, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit further in the future. Let's see if there's any more developments on this front, and if there are, then I'll most definitely, come back to you guys with more information about what's going on with VFX artists on more DCU Daily.